Thank you for joining us on the Chine On podcast. I'm your host, Chris. Today, I'm joined by Charles Patti from Myself Wellness. They are a ketamine clinic in Bonita Springs. And so within this episode, we dive into some of the results that they're getting at the clinic, especially interesting around PTSD and the results they're seeing in terms of avoiding suicide, how people get to this place of self-love versus self-destruction that they're at. It was really fascinating to learn about. We also dive into Charles's past and talk about really all the things that led to him being in the spot, understanding what other people are going through, how they're dealing with substance abuse, things like that, and how he used this stuff to actually transform his life. And it's very interesting as we dive in to see how he views things in terms of purpose, how he shows up. It's a very cool conversation. If you are think about self-doubt or all these kinds of things, just listen to how he talks about it. It's very fascinating to hear. We also dig into some aspects of the subconscious mind, how you can access it, the different kind of methods between ketamine, MDMA, all that kind of stuff. We dive into it, really how this stuff works and why it's being used in these clinical settings. And again, just some of those results that we talked about. But as we dive into the conversation, you can really take away some different ways of getting to a place of self-love, which if you told me about self-love a couple years ago, I would have thrown up, but it's different than what you think if you're a skeptical prick like I am. It also shows you how to get to a spot where you can really live a better life. If you come from that perspective of having some love for yourself, you start to get out of that zone of nihilism, all these kinds of things, which is really that, deep, dark rabbit hole that you can go down. And it's really interesting as you'll see towards the end of the interview, we kind of talk about living with purpose. And now that Charles has gone through some of this stuff and he's seen how he can help people and everything along those lines, he does things with purpose. Everywhere he goes, he has a purpose. It's very cool. I'm not quite there yet. I will get there eventually, but it's good to know that somebody has gotten that far on the path, and it's a nice reminder. So I'm really excited to share this episode with you. Also, I would love to hear from you. You can leave a comment below on YouTube. I don't check them that often because everybody just tells me in the comments how dumb I am and how I should take these episodes down and that they're a harm to humanity. So if you actually have something valuable to say and you want to give feedback, it doesn't need to be positive. It just needs to be constructive or valuable. But if you'd like to share it with us, go to podinbox.com/chineon. You can leave a voicemail. I think you can leave video messages, but we'll listen to them. We might even play them on the show. Love to get your opinion. Please leave a message there. But yeah, without further ado, please enjoy this interview with Charles Patti from Myself Wellness. Charles, thank you for joining me. Appreciate it. Like we were talking about before, I've been excited to do this for a while. I'm glad we can finally put this all together. Can you give people a rundown of kind of who you are, a little bit about Myself Wellness, and then I want to talk to you about, you just joined the board of Neuronics. It's related to DMT therapy. You just got back from this conference, and then I want to ask you some questions about like exploring the subconscious mind and everything like that. So yeah, if you're cool to kick it off, let's roll with it.
All right. Hey everybody, I'm Charles Patti and I'm actually the new CEO of Myself Wellness. And we specialize in psychedelic ketamine therapy here in Bonita Springs, Florida. My background with psychedelics or why I'm in this field isn't like, actually it's a lot similar to people that are in the industry that were touched by the medicines. I actually suffered from depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and a crippling fear of death, and ended up self-medicating with drugs and alcohol for over 20 years. It was through the use of psychedelic medicines for the therapeutic value I alleviated all of that out of my life, along with meditation, breath work, healthy lifestyle changes, and all of the things that are the real recipe for long-term success with the medicine.
You feel like doing ketamine or psychedelics, do you feel like that helped set the stage for you to make breath work and meditation and lifestyle changes like a part of it? Do you feel, was that part of the setup, or how did you get into it? How did you find it?
So I stumbled into psychedelics, and like I used psychedelics when I was younger, but not therapeutically, and just more as like an escapism, which I think a lot of people do use them for. But my substance abuse and alcoholism got to the point where I actually was suffering from a heroin addiction for 6 years, and I had smoked some DMT going into that with the intention of quitting using opiates. Okay. And I had an interdimensional experience where I went to an alternate universe, and there was all of these beings cheering for me and chanting for me and telling me it wasn't too late and that I could do it. And after that, I actually detoxed myself from heroin and quit using it. I knew that there was something to psychedelics because I had had some very profound healing experiences years before that. The problem is I had these out-of-worldly experiences where I, received, let's call it divine guidance, and I didn't know how to integrate that stuff properly. I had received a direct message years ago that I was supposed to get my life together and I was supposed to quit taking drugs and alcohol because I was supposed to help people heal. And when you're in a full-blown drug addiction and you have an experience like that, I'm like, yeah, okay, sure. That sounds fantastic. But that's why integration is such a key component of psychedelic therapy. And for people that don't know what integration is, it's processing your actual experiences and taking away what you can learn from the lesson. I don't preach psychedelic medicines as the answer or the cure-all. I preach them as a catalyst and a tool. It gives you the opportunity to grab the reins of your own life so you can really start to propel forward in the right direction. There was a gentleman years ago, and he was a psychonaut, but also, just an inspirational guy. His name was Alan Watts. And Alan used to say, psychedelic medicines are like a telephone receiver. You pick the receiver up, you put it to your ear, you listen to the message, but it's always important to put the receiver back down and apply what you've learned to your life. Don't get stuck in the receiver. And so that's really what we do at our clinic is we teach people that this is a catalyst, it's a tool, and then it's all of the healthy lifestyle practices that you bring or that you put into play after you come back out of the treatments that are really going to lock you in for long-term success with the medicine.
Yeah. Well, and you say integration. I think that's probably the key piece that I've personally taken away from stuff like this. But I think it's hard for people to wrap their head around when they don't have this. And like we were talking about the stigma to it, it's like to even consider it as like, oh my God, blasphemy sometimes. So like, when you say integration, what do you mean? What's an example of that? Like how would you kind of describe that to somebody who maybe doesn't know or that's like kind of on the fence about doing this?
Yeah. So like, let's, for instance, we had a veteran that we recently treated, and he had PTSD when he was in the line of duty. The guy, his partner that he was with out in the field, took a heart shot and he died instantly in front of the guy. And so this gentleman's first ketamine treatment, he actually went back and he first spoke with his grandmother who passed away when he was 6. So he spoke with his deceased grandmother, went back to active duty where he was watching the actual situation where the gentleman got shot that he was with. It's like he was watching it from a third party perspective, meaning it's like he was looking over his own shoulder, watching it all play out. And he realized after re-witnessing the actual experience that there was nothing he could have done to save the guy's life. So, a lot of people might think about like, that's just a flashback of going to war. But it's like, no, this was actually him being able to process the fact that there was nothing he could have done to help this gentleman stay alive. And so integrating is talking about that actual experience with a professional, most likely and preferably somebody that has personal psychedelic experience is what I suggest. So you can really process through everything and take back what the lessons that you learn from each individual experience back with you and put it into play in your own life.
So like, do you find that forgiveness is kind of like one of the big like key, like it unlocks that capability. Because like in that situation, right, and that's pretty common, and I even heard about this with some like Vietnam vets who are older now, who like I heard one story where it was like a Vietnam vet had been in the jungle at night. They got ambushed. He survived just by like laying down, basically trying to fight and shoot, but like a bunch of his guys died, and he carried that around with him for like 40 years. And then he went back to the actual spot where the battle was during the daytime when there's not a war going on, and looked at where he was. And it was like he was literally laying on the ground in an area where he could do nothing. Like there was no ability for him to fight back anything. Like it was not his fault at all, but that's how it went. And that was like his ability almost in person to be third party and relive it and watch it and kind of forgive himself. But with this, it almost seems like you got like a virtual window into that situation. Like, so that's what I mean by do you find like forgiveness is a theme of some of these treatments where you can kind of forgive yourself of like, oh, I should have done something, or it was my fault that my friend, my brother in arms got shot? Like, is that kind of a theme of it, or is that a one-off? Like,
forgiveness can be a component of it. And then, as Dr. Ferber, our psychiatrist, would say, love is the healing force. When you ask me, about all of this, what psychedelic medicines really did for me in order to like help me do all of these healthy lifestyle practices, psychedelic medicines gave me the ability to love myself from the first time in my life.
Yeah.
And so like, coming from a guy who was addicted to drugs and alcohol and food, I almost weighed almost 300 pounds at one time in my life, scratched off tickets, anything to take me outside of myself because I couldn't stand looking in the mirror most days. When you have this strong, overwhelmingly loving feeling for yourself, it makes you want to take better care of yourself. And, it's like, I know this might sound a little bit woo-woo or crazy for people, but it's just my own personal experience. I'm not trying to sell anybody on it. It's just what I actually, took back from an experience I had. Is years ago when I was still self-medicating with cocaine and alcohol, I went on a 6-gram psilocybin mushroom trip. I had always heard this psychonaut named Terrence McKenna talk about the 5-gram trip. Okay. And, if you take 5 grams of dried psilocybin mushrooms and pitch black silence and meditate on the medicine, it will help you unlock things that you're dealing with internally and, possibly give you secrets to the universe and things like this. So not only was I intrigued by it, I wanted to figure out why I couldn't break my addiction and why I couldn't stop doing what I was doing. So, me being the overachiever that I was like, I'm going to take 6 grams because I want to make sure I do this properly. And I locked myself in my bedroom and I started to meditate under my comforter. And I was just sitting there in the pitch black silence, and all of a sudden I felt like I was dying, but like I started to leave my body. And then once I left my body, I went out into the middle of the universe where I became one with everyone and everything. And I became one with the universe, everyone and everything, and then I became one with God. And then I actually was God for a moment in time. Not like Charles is God, but collectively, from a conscious standpoint, we're all a piece of the divine. And so when I came back down from that experience, I realized that every time that I was taking drugs and alcohol, I was literally poisoning a piece of God. It was this like shell-shocking experience where there was a lot of crying and apologizing to the universe and God and to myself for abusing my body like that for all of those years. And, I took back from that experience, well, if I am the I am, if we're all extensions of the divine, then I should probably start treating myself accordingly. And so I started going to the gym and I started meditating and doing breath work and, all of these other healthy lifestyle changes, because I was probably one of the unhealthiest people on the planet for the majority of my life. And now with this new overwhelmingly loving feeling for myself and understanding of consciousness and the universe and how everything worked, I was like, okay, now it's time to flip the switch and I'm going to become one of the healthiest people on the planet.
Yeah. Isn't it funny how it shifts you basically appreciate God or the universe or whatever that is, whatever it is to you, whatever you might call it, like it does put you in touch with that in a way that is very hard to grasp without it. It really does unlock a door to that where you're like, holy shit, maybe there is something bigger out there. Maybe there is like a bigger purpose. Maybe there is like a reason why I'm here. Yeah, it's pretty profound.
Yeah.
It's really crazy.
You know, what helped me from the perspective of what these psychedelic experiences did for me is, you know, I feel like a lot of humanity, and I know I was for a long time, was stuck in this victim mentality. Okay. Where it's like, God's punishing me. I'm hooked on drugs and alcohol. I can't get sober. I'm fat because I eat too much. You know, it's like, why God? Why me? How come I can't just be like everybody else? And see, in the oneness, meaning like everything being connected or the absolute of everything, once I realized that everything's connected and that we're all it, I was like, wait a second. And once I got my life together and actually really started to heal myself, I was like, I wasn't being punished. This was boot camp. Like, this was training. Every single thing that I went through, it was to mold me into the individual that I needed to be to where I'm at today. And so it's like, you can't sit me in a room with somebody that's suffering from substance abuse or alcoholism or has an eating addiction or has crippling depression, anxiety, or PTSD. Anybody that's suffering out there, I can really relate to on some sort of level. And I don't look at what happened to me as anything bad now. I actually look at it as my biggest blessing, because now I do know what my purpose is. And my purpose is to be of service, and it's to go back into the flames that I was once in and help pull other people out and let them know that there is hope, that they don't have to suffer anymore, that there's a way out. And, you know, with ketamine therapy, it's the only legal psychedelic that we have right now. Ketamine's an FDA-approved medication. It's been FDA-approved since 1970 as an anesthetic. You know, it's one of, if not the safest, least toxic anesthetics on the market. It's so safe they give it to children 1.5 and older for surgeries. A lot of people will be like, you know, oh, isn't ketamine a horse tranquilizer or a cat tranquilizer? And it's like, yes, it actually is. The safety profile for ketamine is so amazing that they use it on animals as well. It's also on the back of every ambulance out there, because if somebody's being combative or they need to sedate somebody, they'll actually use ketamine in the back of the ambulance because it's so safe. It's not a respiratory suppressant, so it doesn't affect your breathing. But when you use it off label, like what we're doing for mental health rather than as an anesthetic, this medicine is changing the game. And like, we have an astronomically high success rate at our clinic. This includes getting people off all their pharmaceutical medications like antidepressants, benzodiazepines like Xanax, antipsychotic medications like Seroquel, street drugs, alcohol. We're getting people off fentanyl, cocaine addiction, alcohol addiction. I mean, what this is doing is it's actually getting to the root issue and the root cause of why people are suffering to begin with. Let's get away from this old pharmaceutical paradigm where you have the symptom of depression or anxiety, and I'm going to give you a pill, and now your symptoms are going to go away. But if you stop taking the pill, your symptoms are going to come back, and then you're probably going to be worse off than you were to begin with. What these medicines are doing are getting down to that root cause of why people feel these ways and have these symptoms, and it's actually going in, doing the surgery and getting the job done. So it's like, we're not just putting a Band-Aid on something anymore. We're actually fixing it and getting the job done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are I'm curious, like, what are the ranges of what people are dealing with when they come in? Is it, I know that it's drug addiction is some of them. I'm sure it's depression too, but like, have you ever worked with anybody, and I don't know how much you can talk about, but like, that's just like almost given up on life, like purely given up, just let things go, maybe not even drug addiction. Like, there doesn't seem to be a solid thing that you can tie this like sheer apathy for life to. Like, I don't know. How would you approach something like that? Or have you ever worked with somebody like that? I'm just curious.
Well, I think a lot of people lose hope. It's like, this is this huge question that plagues society. It's like, what's my purpose? What am I doing here? Like, am I just here to be here? Like, am I just floating around on some rock in space? And
yeah,
One thing that psychedelics do when you have these psycho-spiritual experiences is it makes life exciting again. Like I had, some burning bush experiences on psychedelics before where, I am not a religious person. I'm an incredibly spiritual person because of, what I've learned through my psychedelic use. But, years ago, I had a Jesus experience on psychedelics, and I was very agnostic before that night. I was raised Catholic. I wanted to believe in something. It all sounded great, but I've always been one of those I gotta see it to believe it kind of guys.
I have the same problem.
And it's like I had a full-on burning bush experience where I was in the presence of Jesus, and I had this experience where I put my hand on Jesus's arm, and it was this like explosion of the most loving, euphoric feeling that I had ever felt in my entire life. And from that point forward, I knew everything was going to be okay no matter what. I was also told I was supposed to get my life together, and back that night, and back then I didn't, because I didn't have anybody to integrate this stuff with properly. Yeah. But it gave me hope though. And see, so like when you have these psycho-spiritual or even religious experiences on psychedelic medicines, it gives you a new zest for life, and it gives you a new purpose. It's like, oh, okay, well, I don't have to be scared anymore. And I think that's one of the things that plagues society also is that, most people live in fear. It's literally how everybody's pretty much controlled all of the time.
Yeah.
And so I used to live in a constant state of fear. Today I choose to live in love. And it's because of my faith in God, the universe, my higher power. It's the thing that runs the whole show basically. And that makes me know that everything that I'm doing isn't for nothing.
Yeah.
It's actually for something. And I'm more mission driven now because of it. I used to be an incredibly selfish person, and like now my entire life is dedicated to helping others.
Well, and it gives you a bigger perspective on the entirety of life, like the entirety of the universe. And you start to realize actually how fucking incredible it is that we even have this opportunity, right? Like you said, we are kind of on a giant rock that's floating in the middle of space. Like we're revolving around a giant nuclear explosion that is like the reason why we can live. And then from that, I also can check my bank account on an app on a phone. Like I can walk around with a portal to everybody else's dimension, just like walking around with this little rectangle on my phone. Like it is pretty fucking nuts, like what life is. And it's kind of amazing that it's there. But the thing that I got from it too was a profound appreciation for what I have and like what opportunities I've been given. So never really talked about this publicly, so kind of bear with me as I ramble through this. But like it was probably one of the first times where I ever appreciated what my parents had done and what they'd built and the kind of like life that they built for themselves, for us, like the amount of support that they gave us and like help and the kind of just what they've built in terms of companies and everything like that. Because I mean, when you're a teenager and grown up, I was a prick. I mean, it's just how it goes. And then you're like, I don't know, fuck you guys. I'm sick of your nonsense. And then finally it was one of those times, like maybe mid-20s, where I finally kind of put it together and was like, oh my God, like I can't believe that they've built all this stuff and they've done it. Like it's very impressive. And it's also like overwhelming to sometimes in that case, like realize that my perception of the world and things was like very small, but very wrong in a lot of ways, which is disorienting. And you do need to integrate it back. Like it was like, kind of pulls at your foundation of like who you think you are. But I don't know, it plugged me back into that zone of appreciation.
Yeah. No, listen, I can completely relate. It's like the way I look at life now is everything's a blessing or a lesson, and sometimes both. You know, it's funny that you talk about the, you know, with your parents aspect of everything, because like what psychedelic medicines did for me was took me out of that, like that victim mentality or the anger, like this overwhelming like sense of anger I had for people. And, you know, we have people do it at our clinic all the time, but like I remember I came out of a profound psychedelic experience one time, and I'm like on the phone calling my mother like, I'm so sorry, I love you. You know, and it's just because like you get this overwhelmingly loving feeling for yourself and for other people, and it really brings people back together as a whole. You know, I think that it's a shame what happened with the psychedelic movement, you know, in the 60s and the 70s, where, you know, the medicines were being misused and abused a lot. And I think that the perspective from which we're coming at it today rather than back then is such a much more responsible place.
Yeah.
I think we see how, you know, things failed back then, but like the healing capabilities of these medicines are so profound that, and it almost gets me into trouble sometimes when I say it, because we deal with a lot of veterans, but like, I know that these medicines can end wars. You know, listen, if we're all one collective consciousness, then why are we out there killing each other? You know, we have to be able to come to a common place where we're all working synergistically to propel forward, you know, humanity and make this world a better place. And I think that that's actually what these medicines have the capability of doing. You know, I tell people all the time, I can talk mental health and I can talk, you know, substance abuse issues and all of these other things that psychedelic medicines are really good for. But from the perspective where I'm at nowadays, I actually look at it with the capability of transforming humanity to a higher state of consciousness. And that's actually what I feel like this psychedelic renaissance that we're underway with right now is actually going to accomplish if it's done properly.
Well, and a lot of people don't know the differences between the way that it was done in the past and the way that it's done now. And obviously always people are going to be tripping however they're going to trip and like use it however they're going to use it. But like, and they don't, one's not bad and one's not good, but you can definitely have bad experiences. But can you kind of explain what the difference is this time around for people? Because I know a lot of people that maybe are, well, this age range, the spectrum of the ages ranges on what people's opinions are. I mean, there's older people who are totally fine with it, but a lot of older people aren't even aware that this kind of new, I don't know, renaissance is happening, and they're kind of basing this off of what they saw in the past. Like, what is the difference this time?
The way that the medicines are being used therapeutically, there's not this, you know, the medicines are actually not being abused the way that they were. This is all done in clinics. This is all science-backed now. Like Johns Hopkins University is doing some amazing work with psychedelic compounds. I have a friend of mine named Dr. Albert Romeo Garcia, and he did a clinical study on psilocybin mushrooms and smoking, actually. But like, Johns Hopkins University is getting behind these kind of, you know, trials and getting the data out to the masses. And what I also see is that, you know, the way that a movement like this can really propel forward exponentially faster is if you get enough veterans and politicians behind it. And what these medicines are doing for our veteran community is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, you know, we have anywhere from 22, depending on what study you look at, between 22 and 44 veterans killing themselves every single day.
Yeah.
And these medicines are pulling people straight out of suicidal ideation. So, you know, my favorite story that I tell, and I've told it multiple times, but to me, it never gets old. I had a veteran that was ready to commit suicide, and it was his first treatment day. And he was just like, listen, man, if this doesn't work for me, I'm probably just going to go home and kill myself. And I was just like, whoa. I'm like, just give us a second, man. See what we can do for you. Went into his first treatment. And after it was over, I walked in and he was crying. And I was like, how was it, brother? And he's just like, I turned into a bird. He goes, I was flying over the landscape. It was so beautiful. And he goes, and I don't know how to explain it, but everything's connected. The answer is love, and I don't want to hurt myself anymore. And so with all of the data that's being collected, I think a lot of people that are in the industry saw how badly and in the wrong direction it went during the 60s and 70s because of people using things irresponsibly. We're coming at this from a whole new responsible paradigm where the medicines are being used therapeutically. Everything is being done, in a clinical setting with the right practitioners and doctors and everybody that's involved with these treatments. And I also feel like everybody's tiptoeing and making sure that they do everything properly, because in an industry like this where it could literally go one way or the other because someone's being irresponsible, I think everybody's taking all of these extra measures and precautions to make sure that things are done properly this time.
Okay. And so how big is this industry right now?
So, it's getting bigger and bigger. I was just in Denver, Colorado at the MAPS Psychedelic Science 2023 convention, and 12,000 people were out in Denver at one convention talking about this stuff. And this isn't like a gathering of people getting together and, taking psychedelics and, partying together. This was like a gathering of 12,000 professionals that were all, either influencers or owned psychedelic companies or drug manufacturing companies. Rick Doblin, who runs MAPS, which for people that don't know is an amazing organization. It's the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. And they actually just, it's been Rick's dream for the last, 35 or 37 years, I think he's been doing it, where he's been manifesting having MDMA go through FDA approval for the actual therapeutic value of the medicine. MDMA is also known as ecstasy or Molly, but when used in a therapeutic setting, this stuff is doing amazing things for people that have PTSD and are ailing from other things like depression and anxiety. So MAPS is actually did a lot of the clinical work with MDMA. They took a study group of people that had PTSD and they gave these people MDMA, and out of the stage 2 clinical study, I believe it was, 66.7% of the people that went through the study had been cured of their PTSD. Not the symptoms went away, not that they felt better for a little while, but they were actually cured from their PTSD. So that means almost 7 out of 10 people that went through this study was cured from their PTSD with MDMA. MDMA is most likely going to be the first psychedelic that's going to go through FDA approval that will be approved for PTSD. It will most likely happen by either the end of this year or in 2024. But the great thing about that is, since it will be FDA approved for PTSD, insurance will actually cover it. So you'll be able to go get MDMA assisted therapy covered by your insurance.
Wow, that's gotta be exciting for you.
Very, very exciting stuff. When I said we use ketamine off label, don't think of off-label as something bad. 1 in 5 medications out on the market are actually being used off-label. Mm-hmm. They'll invent a medicine and it's good for one thing, and then they find out it did something way better for something else, kind of like Viagra. Yeah. It was a blood pressure medication, and then all of a sudden, hey, they found out it did something else that was very effective, so they kind of switched it into that. The problem with ketamine is that it most likely won't, or it's going to be hard to get it FDA approved for, depression and anxiety and all of these other things, just because it takes a lot of money, and, the pharmaceutical companies probably aren't going to get much by doing that. So it's just kind of like one of those things where we're using it off label. We're very happy that we have access to it, but unfortunately it actually isn't covered by insurance. Mm-hmm. So,
okay. And can you talk about the mechanism of how this works and lets you go through the trauma? Not from the total scientific part, but what I've heard explained. I gotta have my thoughts on this, but I haven't done MDMA. But what I've heard for why it's helpful for PTSD and things like that is that it allows you to go to a place where you can observe that trauma, and typically where without it, you would normally hit kind of like a barrier of fear, and then whatever else happens from there, the spiral begins, whatever it might be. But with these kind of things, and I'm curious to see if ketamine's like this too, but instead of hitting that wall of fear and then spiraling, you're able to kind of get past like the breakers of what fear is and get to the calm waters past those breakers and observe that situation, your feelings around it without that fear, without that judgment, and then actually process it. That's what I've heard. Is that how would you describe it?
So we're talking ketamine right now, right?
Sure.
Okay, so
that's what I've heard for MDMA, but
so MDMA, from what my experience with the compounds is it's much better to actually talk through things. So like that's actually what you'll be doing when you go through MDMA assisted therapy, is you'll be in a room with two therapists, talking through your traumas. It really opens you up. It opens your heart. It allows you to talk through things and process it. Ketamine's very different because at the right doses, it's like a chemically induced meditation at the deepest level possible. You know, it is an anesthetic, so it has these calming, tranquil qualities to it, but think of ketamine as the mind separating from the body. And when this happens, it removes the active blocks that are holding past repressed traumatic experiences so you can process, release them, and let them go. You know, for your listeners that might have heard of like DMT or ayahuasca, an intramuscular shot of ketamine at our clinic is very comparable to like an hour-long DMT or ayahuasca session, where like you will be in the building physically, but you will not be in the building in a spiritual or in a like psycho-spiritual sense. You can be somewhere completely different. You might be flying through the cosmos or meditating out in the middle of deep space, or, you know, having interaction with other, you know, we have people sitting with Jesus at our clinic a lot. No, we're not a religious or clinic or anything like that, but we have people sitting with angels during their treatments. We have people having full-on meetings and conversations with deceased relatives. It's a very common theme at our clinic. Other times people will go back and rewatch that past traumatic experience from a third-party perspective, but like you got to think about it like this. And, you know, I've heard, well, like I wouldn't want to relive something like that again. It's not actually like reliving it. It's like watching it play out in a movie, okay? And just watching it and observing it play out so we can process, release it, and let it go. A lot of the time we get stuck, you know, and it's like we get in this loop where we don't know how to break free from things. And it's because we haven't processed things properly. I had a guy who we treated, really successful, you know, retired in his early 40s, never had to work again, and he had an anxiety attack like every day for 2 years straight. He couldn't figure out why, and, you know, he was miserable. And so during his second treatment, he actually went back to when he was 7 years old. And when he was 7, he got bit by a dog. And then after he got bit by the dog, his dad spanked him. Okay. And he came out of the session and he was just so perplexed. He's like, I can't believe it. He's like, you know, like, I don't even barely remember it happening. He's like, it, you know, like this shouldn't have bothered me for all of these years. But as funny as it was, after that day, he stopped having anxiety attacks. And one of the crazy things about psychedelic compounds, I heard a story about some work that they did at Johns Hopkins where somebody did a mushroom trip, and when they were dosing people with the psilocybin, it wasn't the actual bodies of the mushrooms, but it's a synthetic psilocybin. They were giving people 5-gram mushroom trips, right? Okay. So this person did a 5-gram psilocybin trip in a clinical study, and they actually went back to when they were in their mother's womb, and the umbilical cord got tied around their neck, and they processed the trauma of the umbilical cord strangling them when they were a baby before they were even born.
Really?
So like we have all of this data. We're like these biological computers, and we have all of this memory storage that we don't even know is there sometimes. And it really gets to these places and helps us process the things that we might not even know are hindering us. You know, like, I use men as an example, but it happens with women also. But in society, you know, we're programmed. It's like, you know, don't show any emotions. Emotions make you weak. Just keep moving forward. And like, That's not how we're supposed to live as human beings.
Yeah.
And then we sit here and we stuff and we repress things for 30, 40, 50 years. And then we get into our 40s and 50s and our life's a mess. We're full of anxiety. We're depressed out of our mind. We're drinking way too much alcohol because we're self-medicating all of these underlying issues. And that's why psychedelics are such a useful tool, because it's going to go ahead and help you process all of that stuff that you have overloaded and repressed in your subconscious. And it's going to allow you to move through those things, so you're not feeling the symptoms of overstuffing that stuff anymore.
Yeah. It's fascinating, the subconscious mind and what's down there. Like, I even talked to a guy who did hypnotherapy, and I feel like, based on my experiences and what he talked about with hypnotherapy and kind of what you're talking about, it is a way to integrate what's in that subconscious mind. I almost view it as like, whatever's in your conscious mind is here, and then there's like a big anchor chain going down in your subconscious, and you can't see what's very far down there. It's very dark down there. And when you kind of do the hypnotherapy or this, you're almost like pulling that anchor up, and you get to see all the shit that's attached to it there and like process it. So he was talking about this time when he did hypnotherapy, and he's like, man, I always had a fear of making money, and I didn't know why. And he's like, I finally went through this, realized when I was a little kid, my family had a restaurant that was located on one of these, like a Route 66 type of thing, where that was a big booming highway, and then the interstates came and then killed all these little towns and all that stuff. And he remembers overhearing a comment that his dad said about him, that said like, man, if it wasn't for, once he came along, then everything started happening. So he processed like the entire failure of his family's business and livelihood at 6 years old or something like that, and associated that to his self-worth and everything. And that hypnotherapy, 50 something years later, let him pull that up, see what it was, and be like, that's bullshit. Like that had nothing to do with me. And then he could let it go. And then he's like, I've been making a bunch. He's like, I literally have made like 3 times the amount of money in the past like 6 months than I had in any other 6-month period almost in my whole life. And it was just like this realization to let it go. And I don't know. I've kind of noticed that too. I don't know. Does that resonate at all?
No, yeah, for sure, man. I mean, like, I think that, so I don't think like, this is what my belief is that we manifest our own reality. Okay. And so like a lot of times we're our own worst enemy.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's like everybody talks about self-sabotaging themselves or shooting themselves in the foot when something great's about to happen in their life. You can see it. It's this reoccurring thing that happens over and over again. I used to be a master self-sabotager.
Same.
I'd be on the brink of, getting a new, like a good job or something like that, and then I'd go out and relapse on drugs or whatever, like the night before I was supposed to start. And it's because like I was scared of actually being accountable. Like, oh man, okay, so wait a second, if I make it, and I'm actually doing something, now all of a sudden, now I have to be accountable for that, and then people are going to be watching me. I used to be the guy that told like my family, like when I would do something and like get in trouble, like, like with the law for a public drunkenness or whatever I ended up getting in trouble for, I'd be like, I'm an alcoholic, this is what I do.
What do you expect?
Yeah, like what do you expect from me? I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic. Like this is just what we do. And the truth is that, and this will get me in trouble with the recovery community, but it is what it is like, I'm not a drug addict or an alcoholic anymore. That was just something I went through. It was like I was self-medicating all of those underlying issues. And I charged fearlessly forward now. Like after my psychedelic experiences and awakening through psychedelic medicines, I'm just like, oh man, like I am limitless. Like I'm a limitless being. The only limitations that I have are the ones that I place upon myself. I can literally do anything that I want to do. And the only person that's going to stop me from doing it is me. Yeah. It's crazy because like when we started this company, we took my fiance Christina and we took a leap of faith to do it. I was in the PR industry and I was leaving a trade show in Mexico, and I was, when I was there, I was out dinner with a bunch of CEOs from these different companies, and I was talking to people about psilocybin and MDMA and all this stuff, and of course everybody just thought I was talking about drugs.
Yep.
And so I came back, and our son Charlie was 6 months old, and I was just like, all right, listen, I'm going to quit my jobs. And I said, let's take a leap of faith and let's, start a wellness center. And then hopefully we can get into ketamine one day, because I had some very profound experiences on ketamine years ago.
Okay.
I quit my jobs. We took the leap of faith. We had the wellness center. It was like, pre-COVID, right before COVID. And we, Christina was doing aesthetic procedures at the time, so she was going to be doing that from the facility. We were going to do like meditation and yoga and all these kinds of classes. And I was at Christina's mother's house with her, and I said, we have a mutual friend, his name's Dave Wilkinson, and Dave was a urologist. And I was like, wouldn't it be great if I bumped into Dave Wilkinson? And he said that he would be, our medical director for your aesthetic procedures. And she's like, oh yeah, that'd be amazing. Like, just like, yeah, whatever. The next day I'm walking into the gym and Dave's walking in like right next to me. And I kind of look up and I'm like, okay, I see what's going on here. I went over, asked him about the, the medical devices that she was going to be using, and asked if we needed a medical director. And he's like, yeah, I don't really know. It's a gray area, but you want to work out today? I'm like, yeah, man, let's train. Halfway through the workout, Dave looks at me and he's like, hey, Charles. He's like, why don't you just ask me to be your medical director? And I'm like, yeah, okay, that's amazing. Like a week later, he comes for a tour of the facility. And after we do a walkthrough, and he was like, oh, this is great space. We're in the hallway, or we're in the front lobby. And he looks at me, he's like, hey, Charles, have you ever heard of ketamine before? And I'm like, yeah, I have heard of ketamine before, because psychedelic medicine saved my life and we want to get into ketamine. He's like, all right, let's do ketamine. When I talk about like the manifestation level, is like you put something out into the universe, you take that leap of faith and you start following your heart and your dreams. Everything seems to synchronistically start to fall into place. It's my belief now that like when we put this manifestation out into the universe, God or the universe or whatever label you want to put on it, starts gift wrapping this manifestation, okay? Starts sending it your way. Now this is just the beginning. This is when things are actually going to start getting tough now, because in order for us to receive the manifestation, we're going to have to go through the training that we're going to have to go through in order to obtain the manifestation. So lots of trials, tribulations, hurdles. A week before we did our first ketamine treatment, COVID hit.
Perfect.
Okay. So like we took this leap of faith, like, oh, is this, is it going to work? I sold a watch. I sold a Rolex that I had. Christina took out a business loan, and we literally rolled the dice with a 6-month-old baby and put everything on the line. And I was just like, all right, laws of attraction, manifestation, we can do anything we want. Let's just go. Because, if I had those psychedelic experiences where I connected with everyone and everything and we're all it, well, I guess that means that we can do anything that we want to, then, doesn't it? So we stayed positive. We kept moving forward. Then like a month after that, we were doing physical therapy at our clinic also. And one of our clients who had had a stroke years before drove his G-Wagon straight through our building. Not from ketamine or a stroke or anything, but his leg got jammed down and he drove his G-Wagon clear into the building. The whole car was in there. And, most people would have been like, oh man, like COVID lockdown, there's a G-Wagon in our clinic. Like this is doomed. Like forget this, we quit. I was just like, it's just a test. Just keep moving forward. Stay positive. Be good to people. Now we've been in business for, going on over 3.5 years, I believe it is now. And, we've done around 7,000 ketamine treatments from our clinic. We have like up and around the 90 percentile success rate. We're really doing the deal and helping tons of people. And, going back to why I started this was that everybody told me we were going to fail. My mom told me we were going to fail. My friends told me we were going to fail. Christina's family was like, well, what's your plan B? And I'm just like, No, like you don't get it. It's like there is no plan B. And her stepdad and I almost got into an argument one night because he's like, no, like seriously, like what's your plan B? And I'm like, it's not how you manifest.
Yeah.
I'm like, there is no plan B. I was like, this is either going to happen or I'm going to die trying to make it happen. So we are limitless. We can manifest anything that we want. We just need to stop shooting ourselves in the foot and keep moving forward fearlessly.
Well, it's a huge problem. It's a big, I think that's probably one of the biggest things that, I don't know, maybe I deal with, and it comes in small ways too. Like it doesn't come, fortunately I don't have like the full self-sabotage piece, but just talking about it earlier this week, right? Rhiannon, who you just met, new chief revenue officer, she is like one of the best salespeople that I've ever seen. Like she goes for the business. She knows what she wants. She is there to help people. But when she calls, she's calling to make a deal to help move things forward because she's like, I believe in what I'm doing. I'm here to help you. This is going to help you. When you sign up and do it, you're going to see it. And many times, just even as an example, in a smaller case, like before I pick up the phone, there's that piece of like, oh, maybe I'm bothering them. Maybe this won't be so helpful for them. Maybe this. And these things start to get in your mind. And when I start thinking of those things, that's when I call somebody and they're like, what the fuck are you calling me for? Kind of like you get that feeling versus she's like, I'm like, how do you not bother some of these people? And she's like, I'm bothering. Like, I am interrupting them. I'm not bothering them, but I am interrupting them. Like, I know that that's the case. If they can't talk, they can't talk. But like, I am interrupting them. That's okay. But you got to not worry about that stuff. So it's like, there's tons of these, I think, small worries, small doubts, small things like that can take you from a path of where you want to go, but then slowly like shift you off. And you're like, all right, I'm only 1 degree off. Cool. But the goal's right there. I'm good. And it's like, well, I'm worrying about this. Now I'm 2 degrees off. It's like, and then there's even a rule in aviation. It's like the 1 in 60 rule. It's like if you're off 1 degree and you fly for an hour, you'll end up 60 miles away from your original target. So it's like, it's amazing how these small doubts, like, and focusing on that worry ends up taking you to that worry versus focusing on the thing that you want takes you closer to where you want. And it's never how you expect, but I don't know. It's kind of fascinating to step back from it and see that that's kind of how things actually work.
For sure. I think this is like, for me, this is why implementing a really strong meditative practice into my life has been very beneficial. Meditation to me is being here in the present moment now.
Mm-hmm.
As Ram Dass would say, be here now, right? Our mind can be our biggest enemy. My thoughts aren't my thoughts. Okay. So like anytime I catch myself in that loop where I'm overthinking, take a deep breath in through the nose, out through the mouth, bring myself back to this present moment right now where I know I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing and everything's okay. I go into situations now like God sent me. Like, this is my mission.
Okay.
Like that's the energy I bring to it. Am I calling somebody and am I interrupting them? Yeah, but this is what I'm supposed to be doing. This is what my mission is. This is what my purpose. This is what drives me. This is how I'm going to provide for my family or help people or whatever. Not second guessing everything all the time. We've just got to keep charging forward fearlessly. And see, like, people will pick up on energy too, though. So
Mm-hmm.
the thing is that if you call somebody like with what you're talking about and you get on a call with them and they feel that insecurity or that hesitation in your breath before you start talking to them, it'll actually trigger them to be the person that's going to be like, you're bothering me, hang up, stuff like that. We are magnets, laws of attraction. So what I put out, I receive. I charge forward with confidence, and then, good things come my way. And it's just repetition, time, but knowing that you're doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing, And I think that's like, everything, like I said earlier, everything in life is a lesson or a blessing, or sometimes both. But like in the synchronicity of everything, because everything's connected, I look at situations that might be like what appear to be as failures to people sometimes, and those are actually my greatest gifts. You know, it's like Keith Metzer or Brian Metzer, one of these guys who talks, I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now, but he says, what if I told you, like, let's say you were trying to build a company, right? And what if I told you that you had to go through like 47 no's to get your yes? You'd love getting no's, okay? See, every single one of those 47 no's that you get is actually molding you and turning you into a better version of you. So don't ever look at life as like, this happened to me and this was a negative thing. We look at life now with, oh, this happened for me and it made me a better, stronger person because of it. See, like years ago, I got into trouble with the law, okay? And I'm actually really good friends with the cop that arrested me now. His name's Frank. He's a buddy of mine. And so when we were getting the thing going, and it was a substance abuse thing, you know, but like when we were getting the company going, it was like a year and a half into it, and we were making moves back then, you know, we were starting to make waves and people were talking about us. And he came up to me at the gym one night and he's like, Charles, he's like, look at how much you've accomplished in such a short period of time in your life. He's like, you know, like when I go out on the streets, I actually tell guys that are still running the streets stories about you to try to inspire them and stuff. And he's like, but like, look at how much you've accomplished in such a short period of time. Doesn't it suck that you wasted like 20 years of your life doing what you were doing and getting in trouble and the drugs and the alcohol and all that stuff? And I looked at him and I said, Frank, if I didn't go through every single thing that I went through, I wouldn't be the man that I am today. And now I know what my purpose is, and now I get to go back and help other people. But like, I think that a lot of people get that mentality, because I know I had it for so long, that like this is a punishment, like you're getting punished because this is what you're going through. And it's like, once we take that victim mentality out of the equation and realize that everything is perfect and it always has been. Think of life as like spiritual boot camp, okay? And we're evolving into the person that we're supposed to be. And like, I used to have this crippling fear of death too, which prevented me from doing a lot of things in life, because my dad died when I was a kid. So it like totally messed me up. I used to wake up every day and the first thing that would pop into my head is like, am I going to die today?
Really?
Right? Completely crippling.
Whoa.
And then once I realized that there was no such thing as death, because we're all it, and I didn't have to be scared anymore, that also gave me the ability to keep on charging forward fearlessly. You know, it's just like, if we're all it, then, if we die in this physical body on this, timeline or whatever we're on, well, it's probably just the beginning of something else that's amazing, and like once you realize that this life is literally just molding you into who you probably need to be for the next life, or whatever the continued journey on after this life is, you stop taking everything so personally.
It's not personal.
It's not personal. It's not happening to you. It's happening for you.
Yeah. And that's hard to grasp when you're in it, because it sucks when you're in it. Like, I remember, and it's funny that you say this, because the last business I was running was podcast production, and I had the business podcast and everything like that. And I stopped doing it ultimately because the business itself failed, and I know that there's no failure, but sometimes you fail at something, and it is what it is. But the amount of lessons that I learned from doing that were insane, but I didn't know how to fully convey that and turn it into a business and all these things. But I knew, like, hey, if you're a business and you did what I did, you would be able to drive so much sales, so much revenue, all this stuff. And the amount of just like anxiety and rejection and like worrying where money was coming from and seeing all the money go out the door and not nearly as much come back in and all that kind of stuff, like, it sucks in that moment. And when it kind of comes to a head, it felt like a version of death in a way, like a piece of me that I thought that I knew and that I could, in this case, like manifest through it or like put my goals on it. And like, I am not gonna fucking be able to clear this canyon on this dirt bike. Like, I know that if I drive it fast enough, great, but that's a quarter mile and this is a 10-foot ramp. I know it's not happening. So I'm gonna not do the jump. Like there was like a piece of it that died almost, that I had to come to terms with, like, fuck, this thing that I've been working on for so long and like putting all this effort into, I have to let it go and it has to die. And like that messed with me for weeks, for a while. But then this opportunity that came up to work at Vessel Vanguard and do all this stuff, I was like, all right, I'm coming in a sales position. I'm going to bring what I learned from that into this. And so as soon as I got here, we started making marketing videos, like instantly went from like 200 views on certain things to thousands and thousands, people reaching out, leads coming in. We started the Boating Insider podcast. Like now all these people from the industry who have been dying to talk about important stuff, things that other people won't talk about, don't want to talk about, or you only can get in a article or something, are now like getting to tell what they want. They're referring people to us. It's marketing content. It's like, it's attracted, like we now have Rhiannon, the new CRO, like who can then plug into this thing that we've kind of built and we're getting it moving. And now we're talking to people and they're like, oh my God, you have a software that does this? We've been trying to do this for like 10 years with whatever. And like, it's a nightmare. We can't scale. We can't do any of these things. And it's like, oh, all right. We kind of found the perfect place and time to be able to take all these skills that I learned, incorporate them, and then take this like solution that we have and like bring it out to a bunch of people. And I'm now excited about it. And it takes it from, oh man, total failure, total like ego death kind of thing to, all right, now I've got this tried and true experience that I can take and apply here. And yeah, and I don't know, I think probably having the psychedelic experiences in the past helped see that it's a bigger picture. Like, hey, life is long, but life is quick. And so like, don't get stuck here on this failure and let it ruin you. Just take what I learned and then move it forward.
Well, that's what, see, like when you were saying what you went through, to me that screamed you were being molded, man. Mm-hmm. And also another thing it screamed to me too was like the whole ego death. See, listen, man, like I've had my butt kicked in business, okay? I've had business deals I thought we were going to go through. I've had people that I thought that I was going to be working with that I didn't end up working with. And at the time when I was going through it, it seemed so catastrophic, right? But it's just like, I needed to get beat up like that. I needed to get molded like that. I needed to have my ego ripped apart a few times to get my head out of my butt. You know what I'm saying? Because it made me a better businessman. And it's like, if everything was easy all of the time, we would never grow. Mm-hmm. As cliche as it sounds, but like, or the saying is like, there's no growth in the comfort zone. I was listening to Nipsey Hussle do he passed, of course, but I was listening to one of his speeches the other day, and he's like, listen, like if you're trying to do something really amazing in life, get used to being uncomfortable, man, because big like embrace it. Know that you're being molded through the process of it. So like, in a way, it's probably great that the way that you thought that things were going to go through didn't end up happening for you, because it made you better at executing what you needed to do, taking some of it out of the equation, fine-tuning the pencil, or sharpening that pencil until it got into what you wanted to be doing. And then, hey, you're in a better position now, but a year from now, after you get your butt kicked a little bit more or whatever you end up having to go through, and you keep on learning and evolving, you're going to be doing even more amazing things, even from a better standpoint. That's what I keep telling people is like, on my journey, like when we started the clinic, I was in a great place in my life. Okay. though I was white knuckling the alcohol part a little bit still, I still had some PTSD that I hadn't healed through. But when we opened up the clinic, I went through the protocol that we give our clients, and it completely cured my PTSD. Okay, like I'm good. I don't take psychedelics anymore. I don't take any medications anymore. I don't take drugs or alcohol. Like I don't do anything. But the thing is that I was in a good place after I got through the treatments and healed the PTSD part. Now, a year later from that, I was in an even better place. And then a year after that year, I'm in an even better place. And it's like this evolution. You know, it's not, life is the healing journey, not the destination. It just keeps getting better and better. So like, you know, and anytime we get into our ego and think that we're completely on top of it and we got everything all figured out, the universe flips everything upside down completely on you and shows you that you are not in control and that you don't have anything figured out. And here goes another lesson for you. We just got to keep on embracing that. And like we were talking about, not getting too personal with it, and realize that everything's happening to me is happening for my highest good. And listen, and I know some people might get frustrated with me saying that because there's some really crappy things that happen to people out there. That being said, though, what my understanding of life now is like, it's a dark to light scenario. This is the evolution of consciousness, you know? So for like, we go through the dark to figure out that we're the light, you know, through suffering comes awakening, and it's not always a pleasant thing or a just thing, what seems to be like sometimes. But that being said, though, it takes us to that place. Like there's awful things that happen to people out there, awful things that happen to women out there. I get it. But people go through their trials and tribulations, and then they come out the other side, and now they get to be of service and be that shining light at the other end of the tunnel for people that are still going through similar things that they might have gone through. So I'm not saying that everything in life is going to be pleasant or just feeling at the time, but at the end of the day, once you get to a place in your journey where you've healed enough, you will get that aha moment when you look back and go, that's why I went through that. Okay, I get it now. It wasn't in vain. You know, when we started the clinic, I just wanted to heal one person. I was like, man, if we can just heal one person from our clinic, everything I went through in my life makes sense, because then it wasn't for nothing. And so it's like the first person that we treated was a friend of mine, and he was suicidal. And after his first treatment, he walked out and he's like, it worked. He's like, I don't want to kill myself anymore, man. He had tried everything. Other psychedelic compounds, talk therapy, psychiatry, LSD, MDMA, everything, trying to get past this like suicidal ideation that he was going through. And his first treatment, he walked out and he's just like, it worked. I can't believe it worked. And I'm just like, I had one of these look at the sky moments, and I'm like, thank you. Like, I get it now. Okay. I know exactly why I went through all of that stuff now. And it's because now I get to use what helped me to help other people.
That's cool, man.
Yeah.
Did you, this might, maybe you don't know the answer to this, but did you ever feel like when you were going through all that stuff and like 20 years of drug, alcohol, all this stuff, did you ever feel like you had a purpose, or was there some, you know, sometimes you go through life and you feel like you have an underlying purpose, and then you're doing certain things that don't really line up with it, and maybe it ultimately gets you your purpose, but you're like, man, what the hell is I doing? Like, why would I do it this route? But did you feel like when you're going through that you did have this purpose to help people, or was that not even like remotely there and it showed up later? Like what? Just curious.
After a while, I did.
What do you mean?
I knew what I was supposed to be doing.
Even during that time?
Yeah. You know, it's funny. It's funny because like, well, I had like, you know, this experience like, you know, almost a decade ago where I was told I was supposed to get my life together so I could help other people. But like, you know, I still did drugs and alcohol after that. And I remember years ago, I was hanging out with a roommate. Like I lived with a guy. He's a good friend of mine. His name's Dan. And I was really high on cocaine one night, and I was really, really drunk, and I was sitting down on the couch and I was smoking a cigarette, and I looked over and I was just like, I know what I'm supposed to be doing. I was like, I know that I'm supposed to get sober and I'm supposed to help people. I was like, but I'm just too selfish right now. Like, I just don't want to do it, man. Because like, I still didn't love myself enough yet.
That seems to be the key to some of this stuff.
Dude, you can't truly help people or love people until you love yourself. Listen, man, they talk about it in recovery, and I never understood it for a long time until it finally dawned on me. They say, the program, like the 12-step program or the program of recovery, it's a selfish program because you've got to literally put yourself first, man. It's like being in the position now where I have people that depend on me, and I actually help a lot of people heal through the process of their healing journeys. I'm like, I got to make sure that my cup is always full so I can pour into other people's cups. And the only reason that I do that now is because I love myself so much. See, and it's not like a narcissistic love for myself. It's a love for myself of like, hey man, I need to make sure I keep taking care of myself really well so I can be there for other people.
Yeah.
A lot of people will have that martyr role where like, they try to, they like, I'm going to help everybody else because I can't help myself. And I'm going to help everybody else heal because I can't heal myself because I'm just broken and I can't heal, like this kind of stuff. And see, the thing is that, first of all, the message that you're going to be giving people when you're trying to help them isn't going to be the right message. And being able to be there for yourself and showing up for yourself is the most important thing because, it's like, listen, like, like I go to the gym 5 or 6 days a week now. I eat incredibly healthy, all organic, non-GMO. I drink, spring water. I sit in the sauna 4 or 5 days a week. I do all of these things because when people look at me, I want them to see somebody that's super healthy and is on top of their game and takes and loves themselves and takes care of themselves enough so that when I show up, they're like, I want that. Mm-hmm. Like I want that, not the guy that's, killing myself, trying to help everybody else and not doing anything for myself. And I look like crap and I'm not taking care of myself and I don't have that positive energy exuding off of me because it's an energetic attraction. It's like, that's how you actually really help people. You embody it. Mm-hmm. You walk the walk, man. People can feel that. It's like, they're like, hey, like whatever you got going on in your life, I want that because I see how happy you are. You're healthy. You're doing your thing, whatever, da 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 da. You're not going to attract the people that are looking to actually get themselves in a better place in life or that are going to respect you enough to listen to you unless you're doing the deal too.
Well, and I think the martyr thing, it is more selfish in a way because when you're doing well, when you have your cup is full and you can kind of pour into others, like you say, like if your cup's not full, you can't do that. And you can think that you're helping a bunch of people, but a lot of times, just like before I pick up the phone, like, I hope I'm not bothering them. Like you're not going to help people. And in fact, a lot of times you end up draining other people because they can see that you need help. And rather than you living and moving and being that example, which sometimes, hey, if people don't see it and they don't want to accept that happens, but sometimes that can be the most helpful thing for somebody to let them know that, like, hey, this can actually be done. Like, it ends up being more selfish than it is selfless and all this kind of stuff.
Well, like the martyr role is like, I'm going to help you and I'm going to help you get to a good place in your life, but I don't want you to get too good because if you get to a better place than I'm at in my life, then you're going to see through my crap. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's almost like get you to a better place, but keep you sick so I can still feel like I'm helping you.
Well, and that's a spot that if you find yourself in a leadership position or anything like that, you have to be really aware of, because it's not like you have that or you don't. That thought is there all the time. That's like, I don't know if you ever listen to Stephen Pressfield, like The War of Art, but he talks about this force called resistance, and it's the thing that self-sabotage, that all these kind of things that step in, but that can come in so many different forms. And that thought of like, well, hey, like, are you sure you want them to get better? Like, are you sure you want them to like be that good? Because then you're going to kind of have to step your game up. Like, you're probably not even capable of that. Are you sure that you want to do that? And it's like, oh, fuck, like those thoughts are always there. You have to be aware of them. I think that's maybe where the meditation comes in for you. That's where writing and journaling comes in for me, because it helps me take these thoughts that are there that could swirl around and get compressed into the subconscious, like helps me get them out. I don't even read my shit half the time, but just getting it out helps me go like, okay, clearer mind. No, that's nonsense. Like, stop, move forward, keep going. It's something that you do have to stay on top of, and it doesn't come easy. Once you figure it out, it's 10 times easier to lose it than it is to figure it out. Yeah. And you might have to I have to refigure shit out all the time, dude.
No, for sure, man. Hey, listen, like one thing that I do now in my life, especially too, is like, even though like I am like in a leader position, like when it comes to our organization and stuff, always remain teachable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even from the people that you're supposed to be leading or like, like guiding through things. Like, first of all, like when I work one-on-one with clients now, because I feel like, we're all mirrors of each other. This is just what my belief is.
Yeah.
It's like when the student becomes the teacher. See, I actually continuously keep on helping people for a selfish reason in my journey. It's not because I don't want to help people, because I do, but it's because me working with them actually helps me.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps me getting better and better. I'll process through somebody's psychedelic experience and help them integrate something, and I'll give them some advice, and then 2 days later I'm put into a situation where that same advice that I gave them I now need to apply to my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And what I also do is I surround myself with people that are way more successful than me. Okay. Like guys that are worth 100 million plus, like that have been incredibly successful entrepreneurs and businessmen, because never do we have it all figured out. We're always learning, always remaining teachable. And like, I aspire to be like them one day. And then, like, I also take criticism well these days, because don't think as things like I have like, some of my really successful friends, like where like I'll tell them a business decision I made or whatever, and they will say something brutal to me, and it's not because they're trying to be mean to me. It's because that's the universe being very honest with me. And even though it might hurt my feelings for a second, I sit back and I really evaluate it, and I'm like, everything that he said was 100% right.
Yeah.
Let's take my feelings out of the equation and not make this personal or whatever, and realize that this is another tough lesson that I'm learning in order to mold me into the man that I want to be, because like I want to be on those guys' level, like that's the playing field that I'm looking to be in. Grant Cardone was a drug addict and an alcoholic, okay? And he talks about it. He said that one time when he was leaving rehab, that he was telling the guy, like, listen, man, like, I'm going to be a millionaire, and the counselor looked at him. He's like, listen, no, you're not, man. He's like, you're a drug addict and an alcoholic. The only thing that you need to worry about accomplishing is staying sober another day. And like, I've heard that in my own life, and I'm like, no way, man. Like, listen, like if I'm going to get myself together, like I'm really going to do something with myself. And it's not an egotistical, like, oh, I want to be all wealthy and everything so I can, have FU money and just buy whatever I want and stuff. Like I am manifesting a healing organism that's going to transform humanity to a higher state of consciousness. That's what I'm out here doing. Yeah. And in order to accomplish that goal and end the suffering, it's going to take a lot of money to accomplish something like that. So like, I'm out here grinding and busting my butt doing what I can so I can get as wealthy as I can so I can give it away. Like literally, like we have a nonprofit organization called the Warriors of Consciousness that we started at our company. And like, I did it because I don't want to say no to people that can't afford ketamine therapy anymore. So we've donated treatments to over 60 people that couldn't afford the treatments. And even though it would have been great to say a lot of that was from donations, most of it wasn't. It was just me and Christina giving ketamine treatments to people because we didn't want to see them suffering anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's going to take me learning and remolding and growing into the person that I need to be to make a real tangible impact in this world.
It's cool, man.
Thanks, bro.
Does that help you get up in the morning?
So, brother, like, honestly, like, I am so mission driven. Like, this isn't even about ketamine therapy or psychedelics, or like, I mean, it is about all of these things, mental health and everything, but it's like, this is my own personal war that I'm fighting. But the weird thing is that I'm fighting this war with love, because that's what the most powerful thing you can fight with is, you know? So it's like, from the guy who used to wake up and have the first thing I would say every day is, oh my God, am I going to die? The first thing that I do when I open my eyes every single day now is I open my eyes, I look up and I say, thank you. I am grateful, because I start my day with gratitude. I get that rolling and in motion, and I be good to other people. I have devoted my entire life to being of service and helping be that light at the end of the tunnel for people that are still sick and suffering, being a fearless spokesperson about psychedelic therapy and how we're helping people get off their medications. I can't tell you more than a 3-day period that goes by where I have somebody say, people like you die, right? Like, this is what, like, you're going to get clipped, bro. You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, well, considering the fact that death is an illusion and that we're all it, I really don't have to be scared of that anymore now, do I? So I charge fearlessly forward, and I keep on living my truth and doing what I think is the best thing I can do for humanity, and to help make this world into a place that I will be happy and proud of my son to grow up in. And I just keep on, more or less doing the best work that I can do, man.
Yeah. Well, and it's one of the things I've been learning lately that's interesting about a goal like that, right? Where it's this bigger goal, it's huge, and you focus on it, it becomes like kind of your life. Like you wrap your whole life around it. And it's funny because when you have that, the small obstacles that pop up or the small doubts and things, they don't sway you as much. So I've got a mindset coach. If you told me a year ago that I have a mindset coach, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. I'm never going to have a mindset coach. Why the hell would I do that? But things lined up. That's just how it goes. Somebody gave me Think and Grow Rich at a podcast conference. Didn't read it forever. Opened it up, and then happened to talk to this guy. Like, oh yeah, got a thing around that. All lined up. I'm like, perfect. So one of the things that he said in it was, hey, if you're trying to get to the top of a mountain and there's these roads, and at the top of the mountain is your wife and daughter, and you need to get up there to save them, but there's a big boulder on one of the roads. He's like, what would you do? I was like, I don't know. You get to the top of that mountain, like, no matter what. You got to get out of your car. You got to whatever it is. He's like, okay, great. But let's say they weren't up there. They weren't in danger, and somebody just said you had to get to the top of a mountain, and there's a boulder in the road. What would you do? I was like, I'd just turn around. Like, I wouldn't even think twice about it. Like, why the hell would I go up this mountain? That would suck. Like, I'd have to walk and do all this stuff. So, I don't know. It's interesting that you found this bigger goal to go after, and the reason why I'm asking is the fearless part, because I got to be honest, like, sharing, this is the first time I'm ever sharing, like, publicly that I've ever done mushrooms before. So it's a scary feeling. And I was kind of nervous before we were doing this, but I figured, I don't know who better perfect than to talk about this with. But it is a scary feeling to talk about this stuff publicly and possibly encounter public shaming or your family. Like, I don't know, I never told my family about this, so we'll see what happens. But like, to encounter that kind of stuff is pretty kind of terrifying for most people.
I look at things like it's a service. Okay, so like, am I out here telling people to like go do cocaine and drink lean and all of these kind of things? It's like, absolutely not. I think all of those things are a really bad idea. I think because my truth is that I have had such a profound healing experience on my own journey with psychedelics, that even though society might have taboos and stigmas associated with these medicines, they saved my life. Mm-hmm. And so like, I can't not talk about it, because if I kept silent about it because of what other people thought, that would be a disservice to humanity. And, as Dr. Ferber has taught me so many times, there is no them. We're all one.
Yep.
And so caring what other people think about you is just a huge illusion, man. It's like we're here. Like, this is just us, man. And like, listen, if I am the I am, and so are you, this is kind of just like God having a conversation with God. Separation is an illusion. We are all one consciousness. So my individual healing journey in life actually breaks down to my ascension to a higher state of consciousness. So if I am not doing everything that I can by living my truth about what is good for me and what has helped me so it helps other people, if I don't charge fearlessly towards that and be relentless about it, then I'm living in fear. And I used to live in fear, but today I choose to live in love.
Yeah. Not going back.
Nah, man, you can't. Once you've seen what I've seen and what you've been through, what I've been through, man, it's like, listen, I thought more than anything, I was 100% sure I was going to die a drug addict. I was going to die an alcoholic. I was going to get killed in the streets, or I was going to end up in prison for the rest of my life. And as a direct result of an awakening experience that I had through psychedelic medicines, my entire life shifted. Like, nobody thought that I was ever going to accomplish anything with myself. I was always an intelligent person, but I was my own biggest enemy, and I was killing myself every day.
Yeah.
And so the thing is that if I found something that could completely shift that for me, I don't care who hates me for talking about it or who thinks that it's not the right thing to do, because all of the people that I have spoke my truth and it has helped save their life or change the direction that they were heading in, that's my audience. I don't need everybody to like what I'm saying, but the ones that need to hear it, those are the ones that I'm saying it for.
Got it. Hell yeah, man. Good for you, dude.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
So let's say, I know down here you're in Bonita Springs, and so people can come in and like call you guys, come to the clinic, check it out. I definitely want to check it out.
Sure.
But let's say you're not here, because people apparently, according to YouTube and podcast players, are listening to this like all over the country and the world. Like, what should people look for when they look for this? How can they tell that like a ketamine clinic is legit? Like, what should they look for? What are some of like the red flags too? Because with this, like, you also don't want to send people to the wrong people, because you could have bad trips. You can have people take advantage of you, all that. So like, what would you recommend for people to keep an eye on to be safe? Or
so for, there's tons of ketamine clinics that are popping up all over the country. And I have to say that you really need to vet your clinic. Just because I'm talking all of these positive things about ketamine doesn't mean that everybody's doing it properly out there. And so I would suggest that people go to a trusted clinic where hopefully the people that work there actually have personal experience with the medicine. Go to somewhere that's mission driven, not just by a doctor that owns a ketamine clinic and they're sitting there hooking people up to ketamine IVs and there's no integration, no like education on healthy lifestyle practices or meditation or any of these kind of things, because those are going to be the things that make sure that you have long-term success with the medicine. And I would make sure that you go to a place that specializes in psychedelic ketamine therapy too, because there's a lot of clinics that are running low-dose IVs out there where they're just hooking people up to an IV of ketamine for 45 minutes and they're not having any of these profound healing experiences. And that's where the real therapeutic value of the medicine lies, is in these psychospiritual experiences. So like, make sure you're going to a psychedelic ketamine therapy center. I really do advocate mostly for IM, intramuscular injections of the medicine. There's not a ton of clinics out there that are doing IM shots. We really specialize in that at our clinic. and that's getting people into these profound healing experiences. IV is great too. I just feel like there's something very magical about an intramuscular shot of the medicine. So,
okay.
Make sure you go ahead and vet your clinic out like that, and just make sure that the people that are integrating you and the people that you're working with have firsthand experience and know what they're talking about.
Sure. Okay, cool. Well, I guess as we kind of wrap up, is there anything else that you want to touch on or promote? I know that you just got added to the board of
Noonautics. Yeah, no. So Noonautics is an amazing company that it's actually a nonprofit, and what they're doing is they're raising money to open up a research facility that is going to specialize in the DMTX protocol. And what that is it's a protocol that is a 60 to 90 minute DMT drip through an IV, which keeps people in an extended DMT state. And
Whoa.
They were actually doing clinical studies with this at the Imperial College of London, where they're like mapping out other worlds on DMT. And a lot of times people will actually have ET communication or contact with other higher dimensional beings or angels or entities or whatever you want to put the label on it to call it. But this organization is going to be studying all of those things. And so I have a lot of personal experience in that realm, and I met one of the gentlemen named Egan that was a founder of the organization, and we shared some stories, and he thought that I would probably be valuable to add to the advisory board because of my personal experience with it and what we're up to at My Self Wellness. So I was very honored to accept, and I'm on an advisory board with people like Graham Hancock and Dennis McKenna now, and
Really?
I've admired these guys for years.
Yeah.
So being able to have the opportunity to work with them in the future is, like me being a kid in a candy store.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to ask if you're excited. You sound excited.
Very.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Thanks.
And so where can people find you, connect with you? I know you're pretty active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Where should people get in touch with you?
So if you want to go to our website and check out My Self Wellness Center, it's www.myselfwellness.com. If you were looking to check out our nonprofit organization, the Warriors of Consciousness, it's WOCFUND.org, wokefund.org. And then if you wanted to find me on social media, it's just Charles and then PATTI, or on LinkedIn, same thing. And on Instagram, I am Charles_Patti_official.
None of these unofficial Charles Patties out there.
For sure.
Cool. Well, thanks, dude. I really appreciate you coming and doing this. This was cool. I'm really glad I got to talk about this with someone who has gone through this and who's taking this kind of approach. And yeah, we'll talk offline. But I'm definitely interested in this. This is so cool. So thank you for doing this, man.
Hey man, thanks a lot for having me. I appreciate it. Thanks.
Cool.